Hello, everybody. Welcome back to an episode of Red Dead Character Analysis. We're back here with content. I know the past Thursday and Friday I had gameplay. I was a little bit busy, so I put out some gameplay instead. But we're back here with content. So, back here with our usually scheduled content. I know we took a week off because it was Thanksgiving, it was the holidays. So, but we're back here. So originally, I know I said I was going to do Dutch for this episode, but since I did John Marston, obviously he's our main character in the main Red Dead series, and then also I did Jack Marston, and then now I'm going to do Abigail because it just kind of completes the whole Marston family. So we're going to do Abigail Marston in today's episode, and she is a very important character overall within the entire Red Dead series. You know, she is a good character, and she's an important character nonetheless. So just to complete the whole Marston family, we're doing character analysis on. So we're going to get into that now. So obviously I'm getting this from the Red Dead Wiki, great site. It's like all the wikis are great site. There's like a wiki for everything. So yeah, let's get into it. So Abigail Marston was born in 1877 and is Abigail Roberts. An orphan, Abigail eventually became a part of the Vanderlyn gang after being introduced to them all by Uncle. In 1894, as a prostitute, she slept with most of the members of the gang, but ultimately fell in love with John and fell pregnant with their son Jack when she was only 18. She and John also had a daughter sometime later. John temporarily left the gang for roughly a year when Jack was around 1 year old, but later returned, obviously. Abigail cared for John deeply and tried to get him to show more interest in their son, Jack. This resulted in arguments between the two, however, as John, not convinced that Jack was his son and had no interest in his family life. And now these are the events of Red Dead Redemption 2. We're going to be going over events of Red Dead 1 and 2. So in the Coulter chapter, Abigail first appears after traveling with the rest of the gang through the mountains with their botched ferry heist in Blackwater, taking shelter in an abandoned mining town. She points out that Davy Callender had succumbed to his wounds. Not long after, she reluctantly requests that Arthur Morgan go out in the snowstorm and bring back John Marston. And after some convincing from Hosea, he grudgingly agrees. I think that's how you pronounce that. Grudgingly. I don't know. I don't know how to say that. Excuse me, I don't read very good. Anyways, agrees and ventures out with Javier Escuela when John is returned. She scolds him for his actions soon before the gang robs the Leviticus Cornwall train. She and Jack visit John, and Abigail becomes angry at John's lack of interest in their son. And the Horseshoe Overlook chapter, it's very, nothing too much here. Just Abigail asks Arthur to take Jack out fishing as she is concerned that her son is bored at the camp. And then, of course, during that fishing trip is when the Pinkertons end up showing up. And then in the Clemens Point chapter, Abigail becomes horrified when Jack is nowhere to be found and learns that Jack was, of course, abducted by the Braithwaites. Dutch promises to bring Jack back to her, and she becomes horribly distraught when the gang learns that he was not at the manor. And in the Saint Denis chapter, these are little short reads. After Arthur, John, and Dutch succeed in getting Jack back from Angelo Bronte, she rushes over to Jack and throws a party in celebration of his return. And along with Hosea, Abigail scouted the Lemoyne National Bank, coming up with the idea of pretending to be real estate investors from New England to avoid suspicion. In a random conversation, Hosea can be overheard telling Simon Pearson that Abigail was the best actress he ever saw. He also mentions that during their trip down, Abigail, quote, placed a little explosive device that would create an almighty bang once they went back, and that's like discoverable cutscenes, whatever. So when the gang finally tries to carry out the robbery of the Lemoyne National Bank, at the end of Chapter 4, Jose and Abigail take up the task of distracting the bank guards and the St. Denis police by setting off a loud explosion a few blocks away from the bank. This, however, fails, and Jose gets captured by Pinkerton agents while Abigail manages to escape and return to camp. Then in the Beaver Hollow chapter, in the aftermath of the botched bank job, Abigail learns that John arrested and is sentenced to be hanged. Abigail pleads with Dutch to save him, but to no avail. She turns to Arthur and Sadie Adler to rescue John, to which they accept on the day of the breakout. Abigail asks to join them in both in rescuing John, but only they refuse, saying that she'd become another thing to worry about. She reluctantly agrees and then thanks them both. When John returns to camp, she embraces him out of relief, having grown fearful of Jack and the best of John and Arthur. Abigail begins to look for Dutch's money stash so they can leave and escape the gang. And of course, during the train robbery, Abigail gets kidnapped by Agent Milton, and the rest of the gang decided to leave her. Arthur and Sadie rush to her rescue. Sadie also gets captured by Milton during the rescue attempt before Arthur comes in and starts to free Abigail, only to be held at gunpoint by Agent Milton. And after Milton reveals that Micah betrayed the gang to the Pinkertons, he and Arthur ended up in a struggle, which was resolved by Abigail manages to break free out of her confinements, and subsequently shoots Milton in the temple with Sadie's revolver. Saving Arthur as the trio rides back, Arthur informs that Abigail that John has seemingly died, causing her to weep. Arthur also tells Abigail and Sadie to go to Copperhead Landing, which they will find Jack and Tilly. Arthur bids them farewell, but before the two depart, a tearful Abigail gives Arthur the key to the chest containing the gang's money, and Arthur compliments her skill as a thief. And then this is in the epilogue. In the Pronghorn Ranch chapter, Abigail is next to John on the wagon in the first scene of the epilogue. Classic. You can't beat that wagon scene. Berating John for shooting someone would force him to upend their previous residence. They decide to go to Strawberry, due to Abigail claiming that people there are reportedly honest and hardworking. Once they arrive, she and Jack get a job cleaning at a doctor's surgery in town. After John gets a job at Pronghorn Ranch, she moves with the rest of the family into a cabin that the owner lets them use, of course. An uneasy relationship between the two comes about, and Abigail soon begins to worry Jack, requesting that John must take him out riding. She also sets her sights on a plot off land for sale known as Beecher's Hope. However, despite Abigail's wishes for John to avoid fighting, she continues to do so, attacking the Laramie gang, and at one point killing road agents in front of a horrified Jack. This leads to Abigail becoming frustrated with John's failed promises, and as a result, she takes Jack away and leaves John, who becomes regretful. In the Beecher's Hope chapter, John writes a letter to Abigail asking her to come back and says that he has brought her a ranch she wanted and constructed a place for them to live. She returns with Jack along with a dog named Rufus and begins filling with joy when she sees what John has done with the originally barren plot of land. However, this joy turns to worry as John continues to hunt bounties with Sadie to make up some extra money, and despite this, she loves John more than ever, and then goes on a trip with him to Blackwater, and the two get their picture taken, go out to the cinema, and then go rowing on the lake at sunset, where Abigail accepts John's marriage proposal. Shortly afterwards, John goes with Sadie and Charles to kill Micah despite their pleas for him not to, but he returns safely and the two subsequently get married. After the wedding, Sadie and Charles depart, and Abigail tells John that they have a lot of work to do in order to keep the ranch going. Now we're going to be getting into the events of the first game, Red Dead Redemption. Of course, it's afterwards. So after 4 years of peace on the ranch, Abigail and Jack are abducted in 1911 by Edgar Ross and his agents of the newly appointed Bureau of Investigation. John is extorted into seeking out his former comrades throughout New Austin, Nuevo Paraiso, and into West Elizabeth. Before their eventual release during their time in captivity, Abigail stresses out how difficult it was for Jack. She also hints that a guard attempted to make sexual advances on her, but with little prompting on Mrs. Marston's side, regretted that decision and no one tried it again. And then at the Marston Ranch, Beecher's Hope, upon John's return to the ranch, Abigail criticizing him for having left, afraid that he had rejoined the gang. He assures her that life is over and things are on the ranch return to some level of normality. While cooking, Abigail hears the sound of crows attacking the ranch's grain silo and asks John to get rid of them once and for all. And then later, Abigail receives a telegram from Bonnie McFarlane telling him about the crops they lost from the pests. She goes out with John to meet Bonnie, worried that John may be cheating on her, and Abigail discovers that this is not true at all, obviously, and says afterwards that she liked Bonnie. And at some point afterwards, the ranch is assaulted by Ross and a large contingent of the U.S. Army soldiers and lawmen. Uncle is killed in the initial assault, with Abigail and Jack fleeing to the barn alongside John. And then John demands that Jack ride Abigail to safety, saying that he will catch up. Accepting the realities of John's imminent sacrifice, Abigail and John declare their love and kiss before John sends the horse out to the back of the barn. Of course, at the ending, this is a spoiler if you guys haven't played Red Dead yet, John exits the barn and is confronted by a large firing squad where he is shot and killed in a showdown by their overwhelming numbers. Hearing the gunshots and sees, Abigail demands that Jack returns to the ranch. There they find John's bloody body peppered with bullet holes. Abigail is seen mourning the loss of her husband, clinging to Jack for support, and then the epilogue, or towards the end of Red Dead 1. In 1914, Abigail Marston dies approximately 37 years of age from unknown causes as Jack buries her on the hill of the ranch next to John and Uncle, and that was a lot. Yeah, it kind of sucks that she died. She died at such a young age, which really sucks, and it's a sad story. I did this last episode with Jack. I'm going to read a little bit from what happened in Undead Nightmare. Of course, Undead Nightmare is not canon to the real story. It's just a DLC, so a little bit of a bonus, so... During the Undead Nightmare DLC, John is in his house with Abigail and Jack. They are all talking about general things, like a book Jack is reading, but they mention that Uncle has not returned from what he was doing yet. Abigail states that because of the storm, Uncle is probably taking shelter in a dry place and nearby will stay there until the storm settles. Later, when John and Abigail are in bed, an undead uncle tries to attack them, but John's beak is back with a lamp, seemingly killing him or knocking him out. Abigail shows disgust at the bloody body and turns away. Sickened, John runs to get his gun from the barn, but then when he comes back, Uncle has attacked Abigail and is biting her in the neck. John shoots Uncle in the head and then tends to Abigail. At John's call, Jack comes outside and sees Uncle's corpse, but is preoccupied with his mother's state. He runs to help his mother despite John's warning. However, Abigail turns into a zombie and bites Jack, turning him into undead, as both of them are now undead as John runs to fetch his lasso from the barn and then hog-ties both of them, and then after giving them both a plate of food, he leaves them in the house and sets out to find a cure. So yeah, that's pretty much just a little bit of a bonus. If there is an undead nightmare, like from the rest of the characters I do, at least for Red Dead One, if there is an undead nightmare, little article thing in the you know article, so I will read that if there is an undead nightmare. So that's pretty much it for Abigail. I'm just trying to hold off to do like kind of saving the best for not really last, but trying to save a little bit of the best like Arthur Morgan. I'm gonna wait till we do the Red Dead 2 characters, and then Dutch, of course. I think Dutch we're gonna end up doing next episode. But since I did the Marston family, I did John and Jack. Obviously, I figured I'd do Abigail. She is a fairly important character. Of course, she is a part of the Marston family, so I figured I'll just do the whole family. So yeah, so she is a pretty good character. I like her. She, like I said, she's a very decently important character within the Red Dead storyline. So yeah, that's pretty much it. We're gonna we're back with normal content now. Like I said, after the little bit of a break we had here. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So make sure to subscribe for more content, like the video, all that good stuff. Discord, Twitch, Instagram. Link in the description. Comment down below if you guys like Abigail or not. I personally think she's a great character, like I said. With that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video.